All right, if you're gearing up for your Pearson EDEXCEL IALIT exams, we're going to talk about something that is quite literally the foundation of every single web page layout you'll ever build. I'm talking about the CSS Box Model. Think of it as the secret blueprint for how everything fits together on a screen. If you can master this, you're going to find building clean, professional websites so much easier. You know the feeling, right? You've written your HTML, you've started adding some CSS, and then bam, your header is practically sitting on top of your main content, or your text is jammed right up against the side of its box. It's frustrating, but here's the good news. That chaotic mess is almost always a box model problem, and it has a really logical, really simple solution. So here's our game plan for this explainer. We'll kick things off with what the box model actually is. Then we'll break it down into its 4 crucial layers. After that, we'll see it in action with a real code example, and then, this is the important part, we'll see how you'll be tested on it in your exams. We'll wrap it all up with a super quick revision checklist to make sure it sticks. Okay, let's dive right in. At its very core, the box model is just the set of rules that CSS uses to think about layout. It dictates how every single element on a page takes up space and, just as importantly, how it interacts with the elements around it. And this isn't just some nice-to-know theory. The Pearson specification, right there in section 8.1.6, says you need to know this. The main idea is actually really simple. CSS sees everything, paragraphs, images, headings, you name it, as a rectangular box. And that box has layers that we can control. This is the official rulebook for size and spacing on the web. Probably the easiest way to get your head around this is with a simple analogy. Just picture a framed photograph hanging on a wall. That whole thing, the photo itself, the little cardboard matting around it, the wooden frame, and even the empty wall space separating it from other pictures, that is a perfect real-world example of the box model. Just keep that image in your mind. Okay, so that framed picture is made up of 4 distinct layers, and we always build them from the inside out. Understanding what each layer does, and especially the difference between them, is absolutely the key to mastering this whole topic. So, right at the very center, the heart of it all, is the content. This is the reason the box exists. Your text, your pictures, your videos, whatever it is you're actually trying to show people. In our analogy, this is the photograph itself. The size of this content is what we're setting when we use CSS properties like width and height. Working our way out, the next layer is padding. Padding is invisible space, and its job is to create breathing room inside the box. It pushes the border away from the content. In our framed picture analogy, this is the matting. You know, that cardboard that stops the photo from touching the frame? That's padding. And the crucial thing to remember is that padding is inside the border. Next up is the border. This one's pretty easy to guess. It's the visible line that wraps around both the content and the padding. In our analogy, it's the actual picture frame. And with CSS, you get total control. You can change its thickness, its style, solid, dash, dotted, and, of course, its color. And finally, we have the outermost layer, the margin. This is also invisible space, but this time it's on the outside of the border. The margin's job is to push other elements away from our box. So if padding creates space inside, margin creates space between boxes. In our analogy, it's the empty wall space separating one picture from the next one. Okay, theory is one thing, but let's actually see how this works in real code. We're going to build up an element layer by layer, and we'll use the exact specs from the 2022 Pearson EDEXCEL exam paper to make this as real as it gets. So here's our starting block. The 2022 paper asked for a text area that was 380 pixels wide with a beige background. Right now, this is only the content box. If we put text in here, it would be squished right up against the edges. It wouldn't look very good. Let's fix that. By adding padding 15px, we're telling the browser to create 15 pixels of empty space on all 4 sides inside our box. See that? The text is now pushed away from the edges. It instantly makes it more readable and just gives the content that little bit of breathing room. Okay, time to add the frame. The code border 1 pixel solid #00000 is pretty simple. It tells the browser we want a line that's 1 pixel thick, it's a solid line, and it's black. And notice how this border goes around both the content and the padding we just added, boxing it all in. And for the final touch, we add a margin. With margin 20px, we're creating a 20 pixel invisible buffer on the outside of our border. This is what's going to push any other elements, maybe a header above it or a button below it, away from our box, making sure the whole page layout doesn't feel cluttered. So you get the code. But how does this actually turn into marks on your exam paper? Well, the way Pearson tests your knowledge of the box model is often way more direct than you might think. Check this out. This is a direct quote from the style guide in the 2022 Unit 2 paper. I mean, it doesn't get any clearer than that. They are explicitly telling you to use these properties. This is not a trick question. It's a straightforward instruction to show that you know how to control layout and spacing. So when you see a requirement like that, this is what should pop into your head. What they're really asking you to do is create visual separation and make the page easier to read. To get those full marks, you just need to know which tool to use for the job. You use padding for space inside an element, and you use margin for space between different elements. Simple as that. And if you look at recent papers, this is a recurring theme. The 2022 paper had a 5-mark question that was all about amending CSS to format and position different parts of the page. You literally cannot do that correctly without a solid grip on the box model. It's a core skill, and it is definitely testable. All right, let's lock all this in with one last super simple checklist. These are the absolute key takeaways you need to have in your head for revision and for the exam itself. Just remember this sequence. At the very middle is your content. Wrapped around that is padding, which creates space inside. The border goes around both of those. And finally, the margin creates space outside, pushing everything else away. Mastering these 4 layers gives you complete control. And for your exam, remember that phrase, use suitable padding and margins, is your big clue to put all this knowledge into action. By understanding these 4 simple layers, you've gone way beyond just dropping content onto a page. You now have the fundamental tools to actually architect a layout. You can control the flow, the feel, and the readability of a website. You now have the rules of space. So the only question left is, what will you build with them?